us went to El Salvadore the week of March 10th through 17th, and we attended the global school there, which Cristosal has every year. And we met with 3 and 4 other Americans, North Americans, and several Salvadorans. And we learned a lot, and we'd like to just share with you briefly some information, some understanding of what Cristosal does, because we've been supporting Cristosal for a long time. And the deeper understanding you have of what's going on in Central America and how they affect things there will help you understand why we have been there for so long. So, Cristosal's stated mission is to advance human rights in Central America through rights-based programming, research, and learning. And I've been hearing that for 15 years, and when we first started down there, I said, yeah, human rights based, that's cool, you know, but I really didn't think about what it meant, but it sounded good to me. So, what I really zeroed in on is, and we'll talk about that in just a second, but what I really want to just talk about here is that we believe all people are inherently equal in rights and dignity. Now, the word inherently is the most important word in this sentence, because when we talk about inherently, that means without regard to your race, your age, your ethnicity, whether you're rich or poor, whether you are a citizen of a country, or you might be a refugee from Syria who's lost all your papers and you have no country at all because you can't prove who you are or when you were born. So, push all that aside, and we're all inherently equal in rights and dignity. So the human rights-based approach is about empowering people to know and claim their rights. The people are recognized as key actors in their own development, rather than being a recipient of gifts from the superior rich countries. Okay, that's what differentiates us from a lot of other kind of mission groups where, people go and build a water supply someplace, or they go and build a school or finance a school, and those are all good things. Those are all called direct aid. Those are all fine things, fine people involved in them. But we've chosen Cristosal because they are doing systemic change in the Northern Triangle, Central America, which is El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. So what happened? So an example of this really in American history is the American Revolution. The American Revolution from England was centered around the rights that we did not have, were not granted by King George. And so our provisional government sent a big long letter to King George and said, look, you're not giving us this, that, you guys are really treating us bad. You know, it'd be interesting to read that letter sometime if you haven't read it. But the coup de grace really was that you'll remember, no taxation without representation, right? He was taxing us, and we didn't have any representation in what the taxes were or how much. So that's when we had the Tea Party. We had the key actors in that situation were our founding fathers, who recognized that we had rights, that we are going to claim those rights by our Declaration of Independence. That was our claim to our rights. And of course the war took place and we won, so that was good. So it's also about, though, increasing the ability and accountability of the people and the institutions who are responsible for guaranteeing those rights. So generally, the key actors are the people, the everyday people who live some spot, some geography, and the institutions, the governmental institutions that are responsible to enforce those rights. So you have key actors, and you have rights holders, and you have people who are and institutions who are supposed to be guaranteeing those rights. So the other thing I just want to mention here is that this is human rights in a faith context, so you don't have to be a Christian to do this work. You can be, you can be Jewish or Muslim or Buddhist or Hindu or whatever you want to be, or nothing, regardless, no relationship to religion. But, so why do we go? Because we, in our context, according to our baptismal covenant. So, if you look on page 305 of the Book of Common Prayer, you'll recall that when we have a baptism, we go through all these questions, and the next to the last question is, will you seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbor as yourself? And we say, yes, we will. Will you strive for justice and peace among all people and respect the dignity of every human being? So that is where we Christians, we Episcopalians, get our motivation and authority to do this work. Cristosal's impact is systemic change, meaning that, we're not going to change one little town at a time. We're going to cause, Cristosal is going to cause systemic change. So those are three basic elements: victim advocacy, which Cindy's going to talk about, community development, and research and learning. And I think you're up, Cindy. Oh, sorry. One more. These are the questions we get, and we hope the answer for you this morning. Why do we go? I think we just covered that. What do we do, and why is it important? Okay.
So, Cristosal is heavily involved with victim protection and advocacy, and they help people by empowering the people. Say there's a family who needs to flee violence, they just need to run for their lives. They will go to the International Refugee, Agency seeking help there. That refugee agency will funnel some of those people to Cristosal. It seems like, Cristosal can help especially. So then what does Cristosal do with this family? Well, they will keep them safe and strengthen them also in helping them with their documentation, some psychological needs and so forth. But they'll put them in a safe house for 3 months, and it's very clandestine. No one knows where they are, and very strict measures that, they can't use cell phones and be traced in any way. But Cristosal will provide the food and the clothing and just help them gain some strength. And they may be with some other families, too, in this situation. And then what happens after 3 months? Well, Cristosal is actually working out on finding them a safe community within the country, within El Salvador. And they understand the family's needs and try to match them with a community that will meet their needs and be a safe community for them. So if they have children that need education, a community with access to schools and so forth, and transportation so that parents can work. And Cristosal will also kind of ensure that they're integrated into the society too. So they don't just leave it there. They just don't leave any page unturned, with how they're really assisting people from the roots up. But they're listening to the people and letting the people guide them as to what their needs are and what their desires are for a better life for themselves. Something very interesting and very innovative that we learned about, it seems like it's a newer venture that Cristosal is focusing on now, is a type of research called participatory action research. And this type of research is especially great with handling community development situations and empowering people within their community to make positive change. So say there's a community that really the people have a severe lack of human rights. There's major issues going on with violence, gang control, police brutality. They're struggling severely. Cristosal will work with this community and go in. Some of the leaders might go to Cristosal and say, we need help, okay? So Cristosal will try to get something going with this research. And first they gather the leaders in the community together. And it tends to be a lot of women, because the men are out and they're very busy. Women tend to be, one of the major leaders in the community, because they're home and they're the ones most concerned about safety and so forth. But we will show pictures of a community called La Salva that we visited, under much brutal gang control and police violence. So they gathered the leaders. There's about 13 women, all right, and they engaged the people in conversation as they're doing the research. And they'll say, okay, well, let's talk about what our goals are. What are the goals for you and the community? What do you want? What do you want to improve? And they talk about that. And the facilitator records all of this information on what their goals are. But the next time, let's talk about how we can work together to work on these goals. What are some strategies? What are some ideas? And this is all data that's collected. And the conversation just continues where they're putting their heads together and working together on trying to get stronger. So it's almost like as they're doing the research, it's almost kind of like a group therapy where they're bringing people together to hash out the problems, come up with solutions and strategies together. And ultimately, the people really do have a very strong, sense of direction and plan of action and how to make some improvements in their community. And their community really ends up becoming stronger, and the people become stronger too. And then Cristosal will go back several months later and check in on them. If they became stagnant, they'll work, bring them back together and keep working. So this participatory action research is really bringing about some great change and empowering the people, and it's the people that are making the change themselves. Cristosal is not telling them, this is what I think you should do. They're letting the people guide and determine what needs to be done. Do we have some pictures of La Salva?
Yeah, next one.
The next one?
Next one after that.
Okay.
Next one's right there.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about
So,
that.
you're going to talk about, okay, we went, and we talked to the women there, yeah, okay. So Mommy's going to talk about La Salva, yeah.
So the structure of our day, our programming each day at Cristosal would be that usually in the morning we would be in a sort of a classroom setting, a seminar kind of setting. And then in the afternoon they would take us somewhere on a sort of a field trip experience. So one day a small bus picked us all up and took us on a trip outside of San Salvador to this community called Salva here. And we went into their community room, which you can't see on this picture, but so it was a very large room, and we gathered chairs into a huge circle, and everyone kind of introduced themselves, and through interpreters we talked to one another. And the women began telling us about how their lives went from day to day. And primarily, they live in great fear, especially at night, because their community has been infiltrated with gangs, and even the corrupt police are a danger to them, not a protector. So it was very hard for someone like me who lives in such comfort to be hearing about the plight of these women who worry about their children, their grandchildren, and what the next day might hold for them. So at one point, here are two of the people that Gary and I talked with as we gathered into, gathered into this small group session where we tried to hear exactly what might be going on with them on a day-to-day basis. They basically told us, and we say, well, could you do this or could you do that? And for the most part, they've tried most of these things, and they have little hope. But then, as we finished our conversations, they provided hospitality to us. They brought fruit and drinks for us. And it was such a good chance to see the gentleness and the warmth of these wonderful human beings who don't have the things we have, but they still have a great sense of happiness and joy in trying to interact with others. As we were concluding, we again went into our large group session, and each person in our group tried to offer some encouragement and hope. And when it was my turn, I told the women that I was going to begin praying for them each day. And that when I returned to my church, I would ask that everybody in the church also pray for them. And you may have noticed in the prayers of the people the last 2 weeks we're mentioning them. So if you will, please include them in your prayers as you pray each day. Their lives are not good, but I think with our prayers, they'll feel encouraged and strengthened. Here we are, gathering our things together and getting ready to leave. I guess you can see Gary there, and Susan, here I am. Cindy, I'm not finding
in the
the
center.
question.
Yeah.
Right there it is. And here are some of the wonderful friends who really deeply affected my heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, very quickly, why is it important that we support Cristosal and go to the global school? We support them because they are causing sustainable change in Central America. And, you know, we have so much controversy in this country about all these people coming to the border, and, you know, here you have an organization that is actively creating sustainable change in that country, and actually working in those two other countries now that will create that sustainable change that's required. It establishes us as a church that cares and acts on injustice. Builds awareness and resolve in future church leaders, which that's why we love to take teenagers with us, because they're the future of our church, and they are our future church leaders as well. So it's really great to have young people exposed to this kind of thing at an early age. And it informs and inspires our advocacy here and in North America, meaning nationwide in national politics, and in our own home communities as well. And it's very important to each of the participants that we grow in faith and service. I personally have grown tremendously through this process. So I'd like to thank you for your generous support over the years and this year. And if you can make it to the fundraiser on April 27th, that's a real nice time at the home of Mike and Erica Logar. I know we have a meeting for the discernment committee. I think we can entertain one or two questions now, and we'll let those guys get on their way. Anybody have any questions about anything we talked about today?
Gary, the mothers that were there, did their children go to school in safety in the morning, or how does that work for their education?
Apparently they do get to school safely. However, the gangs recruit right at the entrance to the schools. So they start recruiting around age 12, 13 or so, especially the boys. And, you know, they'll start saying, hey, you know, you want some money, you want some women, you want some cars, you know, this is good stuff. We'll take care of you, man, so join us. Well, once you're in it for life. You can't get out. So, but generally they can get to school up to 8th grade. After 8th grade there, you have to pay to go to school, high school.
Well, the woman who's the leader of the women's group said that they've been making some headway with the gangs and communicating with them, and just so the gangs just allow some more leeway for the children and, you know, don't get so close to the school. And so there's been some improvements, some better communications, and the gangs have made some concessions a little bit. So there's a little bit of progress, you know, as a result of coming together with the group.
So did the educators in the school try to teach them to stay away and to help this country as they leave and go on to further education? I mean, are the teachers, you know, wanting them to get wise to what's going on in their country?
Well, you know, I really don't know. I think, you know, everybody in that country is under threat, and teachers are not. So I really don't know the answer to that question, but I can tell you that everybody who's there is in the control and grip of the game.
Gary, I have a question. I know, I went to El Salvadore in, I think it was 2013. At that time also they said the same thing. Children can go up to 7th grade, 8th grade onwards, they have to go out of the town or something like that. So that hasn't changed, it's still the same?
8th grade, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 8th grade. And you know, depending on the party in power, back in 2012 or 13, the left-wing party took over and really improved the situation in school with uniforms, school supplies, a lot more good teaching methods, but now the more conservative government's taken over, that's much less of a priority. And you still have to pay for school in 8th through 12.
And then I kind of went over this picture here in this other community, Los Changos or Colonia Ivu. But this is a successful community that they really transformed. This used to be very gang infested, repressed with, you know, violence and so forth, bad reputation, no one wanting to live there. But they transformed. There were more male leaders in this effort. And Cristosal has been involved too, right, with encouraging them to move forward. But what they did, they focused on the youth and getting a big youth group going, where the youth can congregate and just share their stories and you know, be together. But they got a big sports program going. They have these soccer teams and basketball teams, and they actually encourage the gang youth to even join. Get involved, you know, get more productive, clean, you know, work with cleaning up the neighborhoods. And then they focused on the education too, and they had, got them some tutoring and more access to schools and things. So that was really encouraging, and it was great to see this community who's, you know, really turning around too. So there is hope, you know, that it can be done, but it's all people coming together more and working together. And whenever there's suppression of human rights, there's suppression of the whole community, you know. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thanks for your time, appreciate it, and we'll be around if you have questions that pop into your mouths, let us know.